So welcome everyone to the 2026 Clinical Outcome Assessment Program Annual Meeting. I'm Cheryl Coon. I'm the Vice President of the Clinical Outcome Assessment Program, and I'm thrilled that so many of you have joined us here for our 17th iteration of this meeting. For so many of faces that I see in the room, I know this is kind of a homecoming of sorts, and I hope you enjoy the next day and a half connecting with friends and colleagues that you haven't seen in a few months or a year, those people who share your values in elevating the patient voice in drug development research. I know we have a few new faces in the room, and welcome. Perhaps you don't know about CPATH, how it fits into the drug development ecosystem. And so I'd like to start off just by sharing a little bit about how CPATH is working to advance drug development and improve lives. I haven't gone through where do we point this? To the back of the room. So anybody who comes up to the podium, there we go, just like that. So CPATH is 43% government funded as of our last audit, and the presentations you hear today are not official views or endorsement by the FDA, HHS, or US government. The presentations you hear today are also the views and opinions of the individual presenters as well as their own intellectual property. So CPATH leads collaborations that accelerate drug development, advancing better treatments for people worldwide. We do this on the backbone of our 5 core competencies, which span regulatory science, data, translational science, modeling, and of course, COAs. Our work spans the drug development life cycle, starting with drug discovery and preclinical with our translational therapeutics accelerator, to clinical work that is supported by NAMs, biomarkers, and modeling, to the development of endpoints that is the bread and butter of our COA program, supporting approval and reimbursement decisions, and beyond to the real-world evidence generation. I'd like to now hand it to CPATH CEO, Dr. Klaus Romero, to tell you more about how CPATH is connecting the dots across drug development.
Thanks, Cheryl, and thanks everyone for being here. This is exactly why we're here, because these collaborations are about you, but about the impact that we can have on the lives of people that actually need the medical products. So we work across a number of drug development areas. You in this room are used to essentially 3 of our top consortia. All those 3 consortia, the Patient-Centric Evidence Consortium, the eCOA Consortium, and the Rare Disease COA Consortium, are all of one type of consortium that we run. And those are consortia that are solution-specific but indication-agnostic. And that's great, but we have many other public-private partnerships that are either indication-specific and solution-agnostic, like the Alzheimer's Consortium, the Type 1 Diabetes Consortium, the Polycystic Kidney Disease Consortium. But we also have initiatives that are both disease-agnostic and solution-agnostic, like everything that we do in pediatrics and everything that we do in rare diseases. But what's the deal? Why can an organization that is 165 people strong cover all those areas? It's because of what you see at the top right. We have defined 5 core competencies that are portable to essentially meet any challenge in drug development. Everything data, everything advanced analytics, everything biomarkers, everything outcomes, that's this group, and regulatory science, which is the wrapper for the other 4. So you're witnessing the annual meeting of a group that represents one of our core competencies. So this is serious. And we want to make sure that the seriousness of the impact of this group is maximized beyond this group, because this is not about something that Cheryl and I discussed quite a bit, the echo chambers. We want to get out of the same group of people having the same conversation and telling ourselves, well, we're doing great. Why is it that the world doesn't listen to us? We want to make sure that we amplify that voice outside rooms like this, but that doesn't mean that these meetings shouldn't happen. They need to happen, but we need to take it a step further. And that's what is at the next dot to connect, maximizing learnings across programs. If you haven't listened to the CPATH podcast, there's quite a bit of material, but there's a couple of episodes in which we talk about how the learnings of what we did to accelerate and transform drug development for Parkinson's disease, and you can talk to Diane Stevenson, she's right there. She has led that effort, and she can tell you the story of how she put me on a cab in London one day to crash the offices of Parkinson's UK, and that was the birth of what we ended up doing in Parkinson's disease. But what we learned in Parkinson's disease, how that informed, conversely, what we started doing in type 1 diabetes, but also how what we ended up doing in type 1 diabetes came back and informed everything that pertains to a topic that those of you that are in the neuroscience space are familiar with now. That started in 2018 with a guidance document in early Alzheimer's drug development by FDA, staging. The staging for neurology conversations have a root basis on a lot of the discussions that we were having in type 1 diabetes prevention. So the pancreas and the brain, who knew? That's the connecting of dots that maximizes the learnings across programs. And then the interactions that we have with the regulatory agencies globally. Because without them, what's the point? They need to be part of the journey every step of the way. But then how that feeds back into the different drug development areas that we impact. So that's how everything comes full circle. But what's at the center? Yeah, okay, CPATH. Yeah, but what's really at the center? The people that need the medical products. And who are those people? They're not outside the room. It's every single one of us. And this is, we have our an annual meeting with FDA every year, and our annual meeting just happened this Monday. And as I told this to the agency that same day, as we were going through security, many of you have gone through building one and take your electronics out and put it in a different pouch and that kind of stuff. There was a poster there from the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality that had a statement at the bottom. We are patients too. That's it. That's what really matters. The need of humans that require those medical products in a timely fashion. It's all of us. It's not like there's a separation of what happens outside the room. And which group carries the patient-focused drug development mantra more than any other? Here you are. So, but the question is, how can we maximize the impact of that across outside this room? So let me just walk you through something that you may not have necessarily been exposed to as part of this group. The journey from data to solutions. So at the far left of that slide, you see all the kinds of data types and data sources that we are able to integrate. That we've been up to for the past 21 years. In the middle, you have what we can do with our data and analytics platform to make sure that those data end up speaking the same language. A lot of standardization, ontologies, data standards, data management, data science, that kind of stuff. But in order to make sure that the data can be transformed into actionable drug development solutions, that is something that is an absolute key of everything that we do. But we are not a data vendor. We just put together that core competency in everything data to be able to generate the solutions that we are known for. And we currently have close to 742,000 individual patient records across trials from pharma. So thank you to you in pharma who have contributed those data. That includes not just the control arms, but in many cases the active arms as well. So that's pretty transformative. Diane can tell you about the largest integrated database that we have in clinical trials in Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's. But it's not just about clinical trials. We also have observational studies from academia. We have patient registries from patient groups, and we have electronic health record data. Electronic health record data in neonates, no less. Close to 300,000 individual records in that space. But we also make some of those patient records available to researchers. Now, yesterday I was at the Hill, and you guys were having some of the consortia meetings yesterday, and I heard some of the debriefs from those meetings, and one of the key messages was, okay, how can we, again, the echo chamber, how can we make sure that we sell the importance of patient-focused drug development outside of this room, and for those of you in pharma and CROs, to your upper management. Imagine a world in which a year from now, we have a significant larger number of data, but that we include a type of data that we currently don't have, qualitative data. And if we've been able to do the transformation of these types of data that we have into clinical trial simulation tools, biomarkers, disease progression models, surrogates, we've been able to do that with these data. Imagine what we could do with those qualitative data sources. So that's something that Cheryl and I would like to put in as a call to action to make this happen. The data analytics platform is there. It doesn't need to be built. It just needs to be adapted for these kinds of data. And we can make it a mission to get out of the echo chamber to make this happen. So that's the call to action that I'd love to follow up with anyone interested to make sure that we make that happen. And then that gets us to this, the connecting of dots across the board. Okay, so we have in the yellow, the pre-competitive space that we generate. You're used to it in one type of flavor. We'd love to also help you connect the dots to what's in the dark blue. But not just across multiple organizations like you're used to in the consortia that are part of the COE program at CPATH, but beyond. A lot of the companies that are represented here are also members of the other consortia. And the membership of those other consortia include the people that you have a hard time selling the idea of patient-focused drug development to. And we have them captured in a different room to talk about other types of drug development challenges. We can help you connect those dots more easily, and we can help you amplify the message. And if we connect that to the data components and the call to action for qualitative data, imagine what we could do together. And then we can expand our impact in the generation of regulatory grade tools, and then how that changes paradigms, which is what you have in the lighter blue area, to then connect the dots back to the future of the pre-competitive collaborations. So that's the call to action and helping me imagine a future with a huge amount of impact. And with that, I'll conclude, and I'll pass it on to Cheryl. Thank you.
And let me put a pin on that call to action on qualitative data. If you have qualitative data that are just sitting in a drawer somewhere because a trial failed or they've served their purpose that you needed in a regulatory environment, we can receive those as long as the consent form allows so. So if you can go back to your offices and see if you have qualitative data lying around, which I'm talking about transcripts, reach out to CPATH, because we want to get this moving so that we can make sure that every time we interact with a patient, that we're not just taking it for that protocol and saying, okay, thank you, we're moving on now, that we can go back and make sure that that voice continues to be heard even when that research study is over. So with that, back to the show. Just want to run through the agenda real fast. I'm sure everybody's looked at it because it's probably what brought you here. When I'm done here, I'm going to hand it over to our FDA colleagues to provide an update on qualification, iStand, and PFDD initiatives. Then we're going to have Flo Molem to share a brief summary of a recent COA Consortium and Patient-Centered Evidence Consortium publication on event-driven e-diaries. Later in the morning, Nikki Bush will moderate a session on incorporating the patient voice into clinical trial design. And then we'll make our way back up to the second floor for lunch. The elevator situation should hopefully be a little bit calmer midday. Everybody's trying to get out of their rooms and on with their day in the morning. There are also stairs to get up and down if that's something that works into your timing there. So, from there this afternoon, we're going to come back and get an update from the Patient-Centered Evidence Consortium, and then we'll move into a session on multi-stakeholder insights on COA implementation, moderated by Scotty Kern. Following the Rare Disease COA Consortium update, Fraser Bosell will be closing us out with a session topic that we haven't visited in a while, which is interpreting the meaningfulness of treatment effects. And then we'll have our networking reception in the foyer outside of this room at 5:30. Tomorrow, we'll have breakfast a half hour earlier, so set your alarms just a smidge earlier. And then we'll start at 8:30 with an COA Consortium update, and we'll flow into a session moderated by Ebony Dashil IJF on using patient experience data to inform value assessment for access decision making. After a break, we'll come back for two final sessions, one moderated by Lindsay Murray on methodological challenges in rare disease clinical trials, and a panel discussion moderated by me on how multidisciplinary teams form a comprehensive approach to digitally derived endpoints. And then we will have lunch available again tomorrow for anyone before they hit the road home, or for those of you that are staying for the ECOA forum. I saw a few photos being taken of the agenda. We do have the paperless agenda available through CVent. So now is the time to get your phones out to take a photo of the QR code if you don't already have this app on your phone. Not only can you, of course, find the agenda, but we also have our posters for the consortia and working groups to find out what they're doing, what they've done, what they're doing in the future. Information about the event site, and most importantly, when the event's over, we'll have a survey available through there. We do take your feedback very, very to heart. The entire session or the entire program is put together based on your feedback with the things that you want to be discussed here. We know that this is a really important venue, bringing all the stakeholders in COAs together in the same room for a day and a half, and we want to make sure that the agenda really meets your needs so that you can come out of here with action items that you can take back to your teams. And then finally, as we did last year, we'll be using microphone runners rather than having mics on stands. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Someone on our program staff will spot you, and a microphone will be brought to you. We do have a record turnout this year. As you can tell, we do have a few more seats up in the front for the brave souls. We want everyone to be able to have the chance to ask their questions. So if you do get your hands on a mic, I ask you to please limit yourself to a single question with limited commentary. So let's just get to the question and then we'll move on to the next one, because I know there's going to be a ton of discussion here today. And then finally, the workshop is being audio recorded, so please make sure if you're speaking you do have a working microphone in front of you. And then of course, please tune your cell phones to silent. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to our FDA colleagues for their annual update.